Hello, Blazers. Welcome to episode 144 of UAB Green and Told. Original debut Monday, February 24th, 2025. This podcast gives us a chance to share stories from members of the UAB community. Take a listen to past episodes of UAB's most downloaded podcast at alumni.uab.edu/greenandtold on Spotify or the Apple Podcast app. And while there, leave a written review so more alums can discover us. I'm Greg Berry, a UAB alum and Director of Communications in the Office of Alumni Affairs. In the grand theater of life where every act counts, both Carl Peoples and Renee Davis found their passion for drama early on. They transformed everyday moments into dramatic productions, unknowingly setting the scene for future endeavors.
I would hang up a curtain and direct her and tell her what to do. I would play the music and basically scream, "Dance, girl, dance."
And as we'll learn, there's a real testament to the magic that happens when you're in the right place at the right time. For this pair of producers, that was definitely the case.
It just kind of blew up. I mean, Fat Ham was just amazing. Once you get your foot in that circle, then you're sort of lucky enough that people bring you opportunities after that.
And Carl will remind us that luck isn't enough. A person needs to be prepared to seize the moment when it arrives in order to be ready to step through that door with confidence and skill.
You can be the luckiest man in the world and have the opportunity and not be prepared when that luck comes around, and so you don't know how to step through the door.
Imagine the bright lights of Broadway and the captivating allure of the stage. Let's be honest, it's where dreams are often woven into reality and every performance can be a new adventure. In this world of endless possibilities, Carl Peoples and Renee Davis found their paths crossing time and again, from Tarrant High School to the same church pews to attending UAB. Their journeys have plenty of parallels. But it was a late college gig at Six Flags Atlanta that truly changed Carl's trajectory.
You always have to remember that was the 80s, when a theater degree probably didn't mean it the same thing that it means today. I had all the classes, and you know how your senior year is. You're doing your thesis and your final director showcase and those things, but I was already living that. I sort of talked it over with my parents. I also talked it over with the folks that were offering me the job again at Six Flags, and they said, "We will keep you working the whole time. If at any point you want to go back to school, we'll talk to you about helping, with paying for it," basically. I jumped into that opportunity because I was literally getting what I called on-the-job training.
Yeah.
Luckily, about 3 years after I was there in Atlanta, Opryland, back when there was an Opryland theme park, came to Atlanta, auditioned, and got hired there. So I moved to Nashville. I just kept going, and I never got the chance. When I moved back here, actually, in 2005, I actually looked into going back, and then we started with Central Alabama Theater, and it blew up. And when your plate's full, your plate's full. So from Opryland, I auditioned for some cruise ships, went out on cruise ships, came back from the cruise ships with a little money in my pocket, and decided I was going to give New York a try. 3 months after I moved there, I auditioned for the European tour of Jesus Christ Superstar, and I got cast as Peter, understudying Jesus, and went to Europe for 8 months. 2 days after I came back, I was in my apartment in Brooklyn, New York, and that was way before it was cool to be in Brooklyn. And a friend of mine who was a musical director called and asked what I was doing, and I said, "Well, I just got home from Europe," and he said, "Interestingly enough, that's why I'm calling. I'm going to Europe to musical direct for 2 years for a theater there, and I need somebody to house sit. And I was wondering if you'd like to come to LA and house sit for me for 2 years." I said, "What's the weather like there?" And he said, "It's about 77 and sunny." And I looked outside and it was about 12 degrees and snowing. And so I said, "Yeah, I'll give you a year." And it ended up staying for 15. So
It's incredible that you stayed there. You worked with some really popular, famous people, Donny Osmond on $25,000 Pyramid, Rascal Flatts, Helen Hunt, a lot of these names. Could you have ever imagined growing up in Tarrant that you'd be meeting these individuals, working with these people?
Not really. I mean, not those names per se. I always dreamed of being in the TV or film business after I was in at UAB. I really always thought of myself as hopefully a writer director type. I never thought I would be in any of these shows. And, I went out there as an actor. Again, just stroke of luck. It's an interesting story because it sort of sounds old Hollywood, but back in the day when I did Superstar, they did tour jackets. And it, had the big tour on the back of it and everything, almost like a letter jacket. I had that on and I was at one of the drugstores there in Hollywood, and we were in line for the cashier, and he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "Were you in the show?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, he asked me who I played, and I told him, and he gave me his card, and he was the assistant to Victoria Morris, who became my agent. He said, "You should give Victoria a call. She's looking for males right now." I literally called her the next day, went in and sang for her, and that's how I got my agent in LA. I've been lucky, there's no doubt. It was what I was supposed to do.
Renee, your UAB story is completely opposite. He went the route of theater. You came to go the route of engineering.
Engineering.
Why that start?
Well, my high school physics teacher, Mrs. Brakefield, there were only 5 of us in my senior physics class, and she just walked up to me one day and said, "You have a very unique insight into problems. You should be an engineer." And I guess I just took it to heart. And then my dad was an electrician. One of his brothers was an electrical engineer, and his 2 sons were going to college to be electrical engineers. And I thought, yeah, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. So I started out in electrical engineering. And you take that first circuits course and you realize very quickly I realized that was not for me. So I thought, okay, well, which discipline fits me best? And it was like mechanical had all, you had to take a little bit of civil, you had to take a little bit of electrical, you had to take a little bit of materials. But then I had been taking things apart and putting them back together somewhat successfully for my entire life because of my dad. I decided mechanical was the way to go. I got my job at Alagasco, took advantage of their tuition reimbursement program, and my parents were so thankful for that. And, finally graduated. It took me a little while, but because I was working a full-time job, like I said, due to some life changes, got my degree in 95 and continued to progress in my career at Alagasco until November of 2022, when I retired as the manager of research and development for gas operations.
Carl mentioned that he was doing productions when he was younger, before college. Did you get hit by the acting bug as a youngster, the theater bug, or when did it come into play?
I am not an actress, but as a child, my friend that lived across the street from me she and I used to do shows. She took tap and ballet at a place called Beverly's Dance Studio. And I would hang up a curtain and direct her and tell her what to do. I would play the music and basically scream, "Dance, girl, dance," and so we would have little shows for the neighborhood. So I guess that's kind of when I sort of fell in love with the backstage part of theater. And then my daughter, in her first year as a freshman, she had an elective, which was theater, and she needed some experience. And I worked at Alagasco with a gentleman named Jack Mann, who was very, very well known in this city as a theater person. Matter of fact, his son now is the executive director of Virginia Sanford, if I'm not mistaken. I went to Jack, I explained her dilemma, and he said, "You know what? I'm producing Proof right now at VST. Why don't you come and the 2 of you can be dressers backstage?" And that's kind of how I got started backstage. Yeah, it was kind of an interesting story.
It is very interesting that you both grew up in Tarrant. You are members of the same church, and yet your paths kind of don't parallel until later in life. How did you see that path come together between the 2 of you?
I would have to say that the impetus for that was Central Alabama Theater when Carl moved back from LA. I went out to LA multiple times to see. I mean, we've been friends, seems like our entire lives, but I think it really came together when he moved back and bought his grandparents' farmhouse. He was like, "I want to start a theater." I said, "Okay, I'm in." I mean, it was just that simple.
So what went into creating Central Alabama Theater? Because surely establishing something like that isn't as simple as holding up a curtain as Renee was doing for Friends as a child.
Yeah,
And
and
just
screaming, "Dance, girl, dance."
exactly. So what's the background? What had to happen to get this off the ground?
Well, the first thing we had to do was we had to get our 501c3 from the IRS, which is the nonprofit status. And that took 2 years to get back. We did a lot of planning in 2 years while we were waiting on that. But you're right, it was a lot different because we were literally starting from the ground up. We weren't walking into a theater that had already been there. We weren't taking over for anybody. We were literally saying, where are we going to do this? Who are we going to do it with? How are we going to do it? Where's the money coming from? All of those questions. The first thing we did was put together 4 or 5 really close friends to be the board and started planning. And Renee has a great background in strategic planning from Malagasco. And so we leaned heavily on that. We had another couple of friends who had been executive directors at other nonprofits that weren't creative, that sort of helped us navigate the paperwork, if you will, the business side of getting those things taken care of. We were very lucky in that realm that we had people that we trusted and we really cared about, and who really cared about our vision for what Central Alabama Theater could be. A friend of mine in New York, Kathy Freeze Vaughn, threw us a little party in New York, sort of a kickoff to raise some money, because we had lots of friends up there that from UAB or wherever that had gone on to have some success in New York. And so she threw us a little party up there called Broadway to Birmingham. And it was a one-night show. And from that, a friend of ours saw it on social media and shared it with another friend of his. And Bob McKenna, he came up to us at one of the benefits that we were doing here in town and said, hey, I don't know what your plans are, but we have this great space if you ever wanted to come and do some kind of, show there. So I went and met with him there, and we started a cabaret series, kind of like the 54 Belows in New York, because at the time nobody was doing that here. So we started what we call Cat Cabaret. So Cat Cabaret started at Bob McKenna's place on Highlands. And then about 2 years into that, a young lady named Sunny Brown, Leanne Sunny Brown, wanted me to direct her one-woman show. And I said, where do you want to do this? And she said, well, a friend of mine has this studio over in Mountain Brook, and so we should go look at it. The next Cat Cabaret at the clubhouse, this lady walks up and says, hey, I've noticed every time I've been here that you have standing room only. If you ever need a bigger space, let me know. I have a space in Mountain Brook that you might be interested in. And my friends will tell you I'm kind of loyal to a fault. And so I was like, thank you. We're very happy here, but thank you. If we ever, want to move on, we will. Well, the next week, Sunny Brown and I went to look at the space she wanted to rehearse in. And we walked in, and there was the lady who had just offered what was Steeple Arts Academy in Mountain Brook. And we both looked at each other and was like, weren't you at our cabaret?
So what was the initial goal of CAT, Central Alabama Theater? What did you want to accomplish, and how did you want it to grow?
Going back to Town and Gown, Daddy Hatch, as we called him, James Hatcher, who was the executive director of Town and Gown Theater forever, is sort of where I really learned the business of theater. And he had this really great idea. He was bringing in the stars of the time, like Gomer Pyle and Mitzi Gaynor. I mean, all these big TV stars to come in and work with us, up and coming nobodies, basically. But learning the craft from, I say, like playing tennis with somebody who's better than you, right? And so that was something that I had always kept with me. And because I was lucky enough in the TV and film business in LA to meet a lot of these people and to become friends with some of them, I thought, what a great opportunity I have to sort of close that cyclical gap, if you will, and do what James did with Central Alabama Theater and bring some folks here to play, as I say, with the local folks or even some of the students, and give them maybe some encouragement of going on
to do this as, again, a vocation. And so that sort of was the nucleus or the idea. Since then, we've sort of morphed into trying to do more original works. And that had to do with our success on Broadway with the Fat Am and then with Stereophonic.
Whose idea was to kind of take the show on the road, branch out of Birmingham? And were you kind of hesitant and scared?
Yes, to all of the above. It was sort of a group decision, I would think. We talked to our board of directors, and we wanted to learn more because, as Carl had mentioned, we kind of had a vision about doing new and original works at Central Alabama Theater. We discussed it, and we were just presented with an opportunity that we, like Carl said, we thought would be, just a masterclass in theater, to be involved in this off-Broadway production. And then it just kind of blew up. I mean, Fat Ham was just amazing. Once you get your foot in that circle, then you're sort of lucky enough that people bring you opportunities after that. So we got very lucky. We had multiple, how many, Carl? Probably 8 different opportunities.
Yeah, 8 or 9 this past
Yeah.
year. We got involved with Fat Ham when it was off Broadway, and it had no accolades.
Okay.
So we went just thinking, hey, let's go sit at the table and learn. And like I said, it immediately won the Pulitzer Prize and then got 5 Tony nominations. And we were like, what's happening?
Yeah, we were just shell shocked,
I'll tell you the truth. It came down to this past year we had narrowed it down from 8 down to 2, and it was Water for Elephants or Stereophonic. And we had a big discussion, and we all voted, and thank God we chose Stereophonic. And that's no dig on Water for Elephants. It's a fabulous song, but obviously not the
it was just
explosion that Stereophonic has done.
Carl, you said you got involved, and I think that's a direct quote. You got involved with Fat Ham. What does getting involved entail? Because, as a layperson, they probably sit back and go, okay, what exactly does that mean?
That was some of the questions we wanted answered too, like how do we get involved? There's a lot of different ways that you can become what we were, which is co-producer on Fat Ham. Obviously, you can invest, which is what we did. We put together our group, the CAT BM5. We decided that would be our first investment. And there's as many ways, as they say, to skin a cat as there is to be involved in a Broadway show. You can be a hands-on, you can be an investment only. You can bring a lot of different things to the table that make them want to bring you on as a producer or co-producer. We thought we were just investing in the show. From that, then we met all these people who, James Imes, he's a Southern Black writer, let me say that, because that's important with Fat Ham. And so he took the story of Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, and placed it in the backyard of a black barbecue in the South. Instantly, all of us were intrigued by the humor, the classic of it being a Shakespeare sort of throwback, and then the Southern element. And then James Imes is just a brilliant writer. It was hysterical. So when we all read it, we were like, I don't think there's a question, we have to get involved. Since then, we've been asked to do a lot of different things. One of the things that we're working on is writing a project. We met the folks at the National Black Theater, which was one of the lead producers, Sade, who is their executive director, and
Jonathan McCrary.
Jonathan McCrary was their artistic director. We met them on opening night. We got along with them like a house on fire. And so we started having conversations with them about how to be more involved. One of the other producers from Fat Ham is brought us Stereophonic and asked us if we wanted to get involved with that. With that, the options are many. I mean, there's a lot of ways, like I said, to be involved. We again became financially involved, and then that sort of brought us into being more hands-on and being able to answer questions and be a part of it and go to opening night. And, it's been a blast, actually.
I mean, it would just seem like the right project. You know?
I want to go off of that. You mentioned that you had 9 different projects in front of you. You whittle it down to 2. Ultimately, you chose Stereophonic. Renee, what went in that process and why did you lean that way?
I have to lean towards my analytical abilities. No, there are just so many things that you have to look at when you're evaluating what you want to be a part of. Capital cost.
Yeah, the budget is big.
Is it a revival or is it an original work? And of course, we're interested in original works, right? With Central Alabama Theater. What's the star power? Who's going to be in the show? Who's directing it? So we just, we evaluated all these opportunities, and all of us that were in the Cat Behem 5, the same one came out of everybody's evaluation. It was just a wonderful chance of fate, right?
It was.
Yeah.
And cast size.
Yes, cast size.
That had a lot to do with it. Of course, that affects the budget, which Renee talked about. And, because the idea is obviously to recoup and make money.
When you selected Stereophonic as a group, did you know it was going to be a critically acclaimed smash? Washington Post has it as the best 2023 production. 13 Tony nominations.
Right.
Yeah, the most ever for a play because it had music with it. Yeah, it was crazy.
And won the most for any play.
Yeah, won the most
in the history. We had no idea, Greg, to be honest with you. I mean, again, we were drawn because we all were sort of kids of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
We were drawn to the story. We were drawn to the music. And quite honestly, I think that's a good lesson for anybody. Again, I'll use this word super lucky because we've caught lightning in a bottle twice in a row.
Yes, it was just.
That's unheard of in this.
Yeah, unheard of. For our first 2 ventures, into the Broadway world, it's just crazy.
It's even stupid to think of. So the answer to your question is no, we had no idea. We just were drawn to what we loved, kind of like the Southern.
That's right.
This also spoke to us. It kind of touched on, this reminded me of Tarrant High School, listening to 8-tracks in the car.
Riding with the windows down.
All those 8-track tapes that we would stick in there and play on the way to the basketball game or whatever. Those are the things that sort of you migrate toward or kind of moth to a flame to. And then you have to listen to your heart in those things and, take the chance.
It can always look good on paper, but when you kind of feel it, I think that's the deciding factor.
What is it like sitting on Broadway as a part of a production that you are an instrumental part of and soaking it all in? Because that just has to be an unbelievable feeling.
I kept sitting there thinking to myself, is this really happening? Am I really sitting here? And you pinch yourself a little bit and you go, yes, I am. I really am. So.
Renee and I were lucky enough to sit beside each other for Fat Ham's opening night. So we kept nudging each other. It was like she said, we kept looking at each other like, what are these 2 UAB Tarrant City folks doing in Broadway?
Exactly.
So what's next? What can we expect from somebody that got his start at Six Flags and then somebody else that got her start in mechanical engineering? What's next? Where do you see yourself in 10 years with Broadway and with the production Central Alabama Theater?
Well, we hope to be the lead producers on some of these shows that we're originating at Central Alabama Theater. That's everything from Renee's children's book coming to life on the children's show to Courtship to whatever else comes down the pipeline with us. We're both sort of at that retirement age. We've sort of laughed about it. Anyway, we have said, in our golden years, for lack of a better word, that we're really lucky that we're doing something that, first of all, we're going to do with people we love.
Right.
We have a circle of friends that we've started this business with, that if we sort of have the saying that if we ain't having fun, we ain't going to do it.
Which was told to us so wisely by Carl's dad, who was one of the wisest people I've ever met in my life and my surrogate father. So,
well, thank you for saying that. And I agree. He was pretty wise.
He said, if you can't have fun doing it, Why
Don't
do
do
it?
it.
Yeah,
Amen.
don't do it.
I will say that you have to also be prepared and create some of that luck. I mean, you can be the luckiest man in the world and have the opportunity and not be prepared when that luck comes around. And so you don't know how to step through the door.
Right.
So I'm going to go back to UAB for giving us both that foundation for learning two separate vocations completely that came together to form, Central Alabama Theater first, and then the CAD PM5, which are Broadway producers. Just saying that makes me have chill bumps.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
That's Carl Peoples and Renee Davis. Carl may have left UAB just a few credits shy of a degree, but Renee earned her Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the School of Engineering in 1995. With Broadway dreams in their eyes and a passion for UAB, this dynamic duo truly embodies what it means to be a Blazer.
I think there's a really cool thing about being a Blazer in that we live in a city where community means something.
Yeah.
Where family, I'm going to get emotional, where family means something.
Yep.
And then when you have friendship on top of that and you find your place in a vocation, I mean,
And you find your people.
for?
Yeah.
And everybody is so helpful to help your dreams come true.
Be sure to check out past episodes of the UAB Green and Told podcast. Listen in at alumni.uab.edu/Green and Told. Have a story to share or know someone who does? Email greenandtold@uab.edu. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media. Just search UAB Alumni on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening, and until next time, go Blazers.